Imagine walking down the street, it's a bright sunny day, you're having a great old time, and then suddenly you see this thing driving from around the corner. Now, if your reaction would be similar to what the heck is that abomination, then you're probably going to be similar to my reaction. However, this is not just an abomination of a car. It's actually a very intricate, exposed, experimental engine that was very important for our cars of today to advance. Hello, my name is Michael, and welcome back to another fictional history episode of my Lego City. And in today's episode of this series, I guess? I don't know, it's only been 2 videos so far. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about this thing, the V-17H. Now, this was a very strange car, and we're going to get into more detail of that in just a second. But before we start today's episode of my Lego City's fictional history, please, as much as enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified of every single video that comes out. But without further ado, let's get straight into this episode. Cars are a pretty regular, everyday thing. I mean, they're on roads. If you're watching this video, you probably own one. But that wasn't the case way back in 1947. Back then, cars were still a relatively new thing to hit the market, and there wasn't too many of them. I mean, there was only a couple of different models, but yeah. And since its invention just over 100 years ago, in 1886, cars have become pretty revolutionary. But that wasn't the case in 1947. Especially for Brick City. At the time, it was still called Dungeon City. And cars were very, very, very scarce. After the big impact of World War II, Dungeon City just became a waste dump. And there was just no cars. There was only about 5 or 7 cars in the whole city. And in all the sister cities around Dungeon City, there was pretty much nothing there at all. But, thankfully, one man that goes by the name of Harrison Johnson came up with an amazing design which inspired people to keep making more cars for the city. It was this thing. It took him about 7 years to completely design and build it, and it was an absolute monster. One of the first monster trucks in the area of Dungeon City. But it wasn't exactly classified as a monster truck since it had no suspension whatsoever and did not have any of the different classifications or features that a monster truck had. But it was still cool nonetheless. Now, this thing may look simple from the outside, but inside is very, very complex. Let me explain. So, this little windmill thing right here, you need to get that spinning in order to get it started. Unlike back then, today we just either press a button or turn some keys to get our cars started. But back then, you had to manually crank up the engine, and then you would have to get in, press on the gas pedal, and go. But here, instead of winding up a crank, you had to get the wheel spinning, this little windmill spinning. And as long as it spun, the thing would keep going. Now, this wouldn't actually really work on a quiet and not windy day, so it was later installed with a 57-volt fan to constantly keep blowing at the fan, well, not the fan, the windmill, to keep everything running. But after the windmill got spinning, it turned a stick, which essentially turned matches to light and dip into the tank of gasoline below. And that gasoline then that gas exported from the gasoline went into the main gearbox, where it transferred all the energy through about 37 gears, and then sending the signal back through the gasoline tank and to turn a larger gear, which essentially turned another gear, which therefore turned the wheels. But the gasoline got lit twice, so it could get the maximum power out of everything. And what happens to the excess gas, you may be wondering? Well, all of that unneeded gas gets thrown out this ginormous exhaust in the back. And it came through this pipe. The steering wasn't like regular everyday cars back then and today. Today and back then, you turn the wheel and it turns the front wheels. But here, the wheel was at the back, and the front wheels were used for powering the car forward. So, my dear viewer, how do you think this thing steered? Well, simple. It simply steered from the back wheels, and it all worked just the same. Now, the main reason this thing was so important. Now, you may be wondering why this thing is called the V-17H. Well, the V stands for vapor because it used the vapor from the double-lit gas to essentially turn and make the thing function. The 17 refers to how many tons it weighs. And the H stands for how much horsepower it produces, which, by the way, is about 107,000 horsepower. Now, this thing, it wasn't very fast. It was actually very slow, but it was very powerful. And in 1949, it broke the world record for automobile hauling. And it was able to haul 8 tons of steel beams. Now that is pretty impressive. Well, if you think that impressive, there is some other things. This is the only truck of its kind. This is the only V-17H out there in the world. And guess what? It was scrapped. Yes. Essentially, it got scrapped for poor maintenance and just necessary weirdness. It was scrapped in 1952 and would sadly never again be seen to the world. Or will it? Today, somewhere in Brick City, which is called Brick City now, there is a small organization that is working together to bring back the V-17H. And their goal is to hopefully, by the end of 2021, or at least by the end of January 2022, completely make the world's second V-17H. So please, donate to vh17.org to help restore this massive car. So that was it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all next time.